And so I would say Kenny is my go-to guy when I want to talk about the future of publishing. Like, we have incredible conversations every single time. It's a banger. And it's because both of us are dreamers, right? Both of us are thinking about the future and thinking about the ramifications and the consequences of things that are happening now. But what I've always loved about Kenny is that he is about as hardcore of an advocate for publishing as I've ever met. He's jealous over his partners. He has a desire to be a part of making the industry better and making it survive and thrive. And that's even reflected in the fact that my brother was within the last year acquired a magazine, right? So now he's not only a service provider to publishers, but is also a publisher. And so he's one of those rare people that see the game from both sides of the court and the sidelines. And it's been such a value to me to get to know you, Kenny, and to get to know your heart and, your willingness to fight. I called you the lover brawler because, you're a fighter. But that comes from a place of deep loyalty and respect and care for the people around you, which I've experienced. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand you the mic and let you hit it hard, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Lover, fighter. Yeah, I think I got the fighting side from my dad, who's very similar, but it's been awesome. It is true. Every single time we have a conversation, it's amazing. I think we schedule about a half hour, end up talking for an hour consistently. And we do get really deep because we both think about these things. And I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. So I really appreciate everyone who helped organize this. Johnny, thank you for having me. Thank you to the panelists. I want to share something that I've been working on since I acquired that publication. In this case, it was a local news website. It kind of blurs the lines between local news and magazines sometimes, but I wanted to share something that I've been working on because I've been thinking about what comes next and how we have kind of inherited a lot in publishing that are things that the way things used to be done. I think we're at the point where, on the topic that Johnny was talking about, innovation, we need to push forward. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll hop in. I'm going to probably work through these slides in about 20 minutes and then answer any questions at the end. And if you want to, if you come up with a question midway through and you just feel like putting it in the chat, go ahead and drop it in there and I'll get to it. I'm also going to keep my screen, if it's all right with everyone, I'm going to keep it like this, because I might want to hop around with the slides a little bit and, popping out and into full screen mode. So I hope this is all right with everyone. Rediscovering partnership. It's kind of my pursuit after acquiring Red Bank Green as a local news in Red Bank, New Jersey, local news publication. This pursuit of identity, authenticity, partnership, and really understanding who we were to the community. Right? And thinking about, if I had to break all the rules, what would it look like? Right? So publisher, but I also do the sales for Red Bank Green now. And I've been working with publishers in sales for a long time. But let me get a little bit into my background. So I describe myself as a pretty good engineer. I'm probably not the greatest software engineer of all time, but I know enough to build some really great things. I was formerly at Yahoo, did some time at Mozilla. I spend a lot of time thinking, having fun, and building things. Publisher of Red Bank Green. I'm based in New Jersey, although today I'm actually out in San Mateo for a conference and checking out some of the surrounding Bay Area. And most importantly, I'm a dad to two boys, Kenny, who's 4 years old, and Will, 2. Kenny named after myself, and Will after the indomitable human spirit, and that's a true story. So you can tell I get a little esoteric sometimes. But the reason I do what I do is that it's fun. It's important, it's useful, and I'm having a blast doing it. I'm not here to talk about Broad Street, but I am here to talk about the story that kind of took me to where I am and how I arrived here. Because everywhere that you are, there's a way that you got there. And Broad Street is how I fell into this, because I worked at Yahoo, and then I kind of ended up starting this company. It was almost necessary from where I was at the time. But Broad Street it's software for serving ads to a publisher's website. Good for tracking clicks and stuff. And conceptually, you would say this sounds like the most boring company in the world. And it isn't. because what we do is what we help our customers impress their customers, right? Help our publishers impress their advertisers, make them say, wow. We kind of got these three principles: impress, perform, renew. And then we also break it down: partnership, product, and performance. So to give you an overview of what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to tell you the origin story of Broad Street. And it's definitely pretty interesting. There are questions that came out of it, and there's been this continuing search for answers. That kind of led me to question, like, what was Red Bank Green's identity? What was Broad Street's identity? What were we doing that was authentic, and like, what could we do better? Partnership, purpose, but there's one goal. And this is when I connect with anybody, the most valuable thing I can get out of it is perspective. If I can see something from a different angle, that can have a profound and continuing impact on things. And sometimes you just need that little difference in your perspective. So I want to share you what I've done, my story, and then if you come out with a different perspective that is useful for you, fantastic. So it all starts with this guy who owned a butcher shop, Monmouth Meats. His name is Stu, which is the perfect name for someone who owns a meat shop. John Ward, up here on the left corner, was the original owner of Red Bank Green. Stu had been an advertiser at Red Bank Green for 5 years. And in 2012, John Ward came to Stu for a renewal, and Stu said, I'm not going to renew, right? And John Ward said, why? And Stu said, I've been posting my lunch specials to Facebook. That appears to be all that I need to do. And this is what it looks like. And he's not a very good photographer. The lighting is always off, but he gets some traction on Facebook. So he said, this is what I'm doing. I don't really need Red Bank Green anymore. And John Ward was like thinking about this. And John Ward got to know me because I lived in Red Bank. And at the time, I still worked at Yahoo. And this is a picture of me with my eventual co-founder, John Carpezzi, on the left. And John Ward said to me, he said, is there a way that we could take Stu's lunch special and bake it into an ad on Red Bank Green? So every time he posted his lunch special on Facebook, it would automatically go under Red Bank Green. And being a developer, I said, like, sure, why not? So this was the ad that came out of it. And every single day, this ad, which is on Red Bank Green, would update with the latest content. And it was an animated GIF, so Stu's mouth was chattering. Most people didn't even know who the owner of Monmouth Meats was. But now they saw his chattering face telling the lunch special every day. And people started coming into his shop saying they loved the ad that they saw on Red Bank Green. Well, Stu wasn't an advertiser for just like another 6 months or a year. He's still an advertiser 10 years later to this day. Right? It's about $60,000 for Red Bank Green over the course of 10 years. So there are some lessons that came out of this. We did something cool and it saved a customer. Readers liked the ad and still talk about it. I was on the call with an advertiser and they said, I love Stu over at Monmouth Meats. I love looking at his ad, right? It connected Stu with the community and nobody else was doing it. And more people see his post today because of Facebook's algorithm on Red Bank Green than they do on Facebook. So not only were we delivering more performance, we're delivering more connection with the community. But then these questions came out of it. And I said, was I taking something for granted about ad sales? Because John Ward thought about it and I was a developer and I didn't think about it, he did. And I said, do I have a duty to think about what would be fun and effective and bring a business into the community, introduce them and bring out the human behind it? And was I thinking about ad sales all wrong? And that's where I went into this deep dive. And for anybody who's followed me on LinkedIn, I recently got a subpoena from the Department of Justice and Google in the antitrust case. And a big part of it is a white paper I wrote called 10 Advantages, where I really dove deep into the advantages little publishers have. And when I say little, I mean like, we're talking just not national, huge publishers. Small publishers, niche publishers, local B2B have in the, won't call it a war, make it sound like that, but in the battle between them and Facebook and Google. And I arrived at this realization that there's like two kinds of sales: partnership and transactional sales. And for me, it wasn't obvious at the time. And like for some people, it may be obvious, or maybe this is the first you're thinking about it this way. There's two different kinds of sales. There's this transactional model of sales, which is like a vending machine or a franchise. Like you give them the money, they give you the product. It's optimized for efficiency, scale, and low pricing. The product is one size fits all for the most part. And it's not optimized for guiding the client towards success. And historically, the newspaper had operated this way. We have the empty space, send us the ad, give us the money, and that was it. Here's the insertion order, fill it out, send us the creatives, and we're done, right? Newspaper was engaged in transactional sales for probably the last century, up until like the dawn of widespread buying and selling of advertising. Then Google and Facebook came along and did that better than they ever could have. They have the platform, Google AdWords, AdSense, they have the publishers, advertisers. They can give an advertiser a place to swipe a card, right? And a way to deliver those ads to a targeted audience better than newspaper or magazine industry ever will. And I realized that a lot of the way that we were doing sales at Red Bank Green was treating our sales as part of the transactional model. We were following this transactional model. And I noticed a lot of other publishers were. They were taking a page out of the old transactional playbook, but I don't think that's the book going forward. Because the sales that I've done, I've been trying to figure out where that customer was today, where that advertiser was today, and where I could take them, right? I was always trying to figure out, like, what are their problems? What are the things they want to tell everyone? Where I could take them. So I'm at a conference called SaaStr, and the owner of Monday.com, or the CEO of Monday.com, said something really interesting. He said, for our biggest customers, I realized that the product that people wanted a lot of the time was just someone to talk to. And this is what partnership is. I want to make sure you're making the right decision. Like, business owners have so much on their minds. They don't have time to like figure this stuff out. They don't have time in a lot of the cases to go on Facebook and swipe a card. Maybe sometimes their VP of marketing does, but I talk to VPs of marketing, local YMCA. She says, listen, I have like $5K a month to spend, but I don't even know how to spend it. I don't know where to begin to spend it. I spend 40 hours a week making flyers and other dumb things. Like, I don't know how to take like this and do a paid marketing budget. I need someone to do it for me. They need guidance towards success. And there's something very real about this. Transactional sales can never totally defeat partnership sales, and vice versa. They're kind of like this yin and yang. So I got to thinking, which one are we? Who are we? So just a quick aside, I think everybody coming out of Labor Day or any holiday weekend, you probably do what I do, which is probably like eat way too much. And usually feel the effects of it like the first business day afterward. And you're like, look at yourself in the mirror, like, oh man, I need to like, I need to eat like nothing today. And I was looking at myself, I think it was like 4th of July weekend, and I was like, why did I have to eat like 50 hot dogs? And my son comes into the room and goes, who are you? I was thinking, I didn't even look like myself. I was like, and I like took it personally. And I was like, I don't know why it felt like such an indictment of who I was. And then I realized he was just goofing on me and having fun. He had seen something in some video and decided to call me out. But like the fact that I actually thought, my mind went along that path, who are you? But then I thought, for Red Bank Green, oh, by the way, I went to the Bruce Springsteen concert on Sunday because I'm in New Jersey. You have to. And I told my dad about that story, and he said, you used to say that all the time. And I'd ask you back, who are you? And you'd say Batman from the 1989 Batman. So anyway, I was thinking, what do we stand for at Red Bank Green? I really drilled John Ward, really figured out. We said our community, the vitality of Red Bank. We love Red Bank. Red Bank's a gem. We want to polish it as much as we possibly can. But most importantly, we're here to have fun. We're here to have fun doing it. And we want to do it for 100 years. We want to build a company that lasts. And a lot of publishers are trying to figure out the next year or 5 years. So I want to say, like, how are we going to make it stand for 100 years? So I thought about how would Red Bank Green change if we were to break the mold, if we were going to step outside the tag div newspaper theme, right? Newspack. Like, if we were to change everything, what would it look like? We're going to radically live our core values. How would it be reflected in our product and how we treated our customers? So the answer changes a lot of things. And it's going to change more. We've gotten a few steps into it. We realized we got 3 people. We got us, we got the readers, and we got the advertisers. And when we think about the relationship between us and partners, we are going to think of their business as our business. We are going to understand who they are, and where they want to go. And if we can take them there, then I have a duty to offer. If I get that deep, It's not a sale anymore. I'm not trying to sell ads. I'm trying to take someone to where they want to go. And if I can do that, I have a duty to do that. With our readers, I really want them to know, like, we're not just like something that you click on Facebook. I want them to know who we are and what we stand for. And I want to repeat that over and over. Our job is to facilitate the storytelling and the conversations. Quick aside, I met a guy named Jeff Jarvis, wrote a great book called the Gutenberg Parentheses. Talked about prior to the printing press, very conversational. That's how you heard stories, songs, news. But once the printing press came out, that became the source of truth. And now that social media has arrived again, we're on the other end of this parentheses, and we are back into a conversational place. Realize it's not our job to be the authority in news. It's our job to facilitate the connection between the people in the community, and to be a reflection of that community. And for our partners, our advertisers, they are undeniably members of our community. We are not marginalizing them like we see in the newspaper industry. We stick them in the sidebar. We say, all right, that's good. Give us your 500,000 bucks, whatever it is. All right. Their stories are just as important. And it's my job to show the community who they are. And if I can, really uncover the people behind it. 3 key changes, right? So this is what I call the vibe model. VI stands for vision. B stands for business, and E stands for everyone, right? On Red Bank Green, the new Red Bank Green, who we are is front and center. So these are just some things that we've done, but it's a reflection of who we are and the partnership with our clients and our advertisers. This is Red Bank Green today. It's got programmatic. It's like every crappy local news site in the world, right? Programmatic ads, all that stuff. This is what I inherited. This is what we're moving toward. So we had an artist put together some custom artwork of Red Bank to demonstrate the community. We put our 100-year vision front and center right at the end of that street. That's Broad Street in downtown Red Bank, New Jersey, right? We say that we're standing for the vitality of Red Bank, its community, and the fun we had together, right? So we're really, really pushing our vision forward. We're telling people what we stand for. Our partners are members of the community first, right? They're not just businesses. They're not evil advertisers. They're members of the community. So we thought about, like, how would that change advertising? Well, how could we best reflect the organization through their static messaging, the stuff that they would have put in an ad anyway, bringing in some of their social media posts, maybe taking in some of their one-off posts for events, and where possible, bringing the people from the organization out from behind it and encouraging the community to give social proof and feedback. There's a little bit of what that looks like. So we're going with a more native style format, but we position them first as pillars of our community. These are the highest paying advertisers. We have their static messaging, but sometimes it's going to be social media. Sometimes it's going to be their latest Instagram post. Sometimes it's going to be an AI generated variation on their existing messaging. And of course, they'll be able to send in their one-off posts. Now, this is the YMCA. There's not like someone behind that, but here's a local realtor, Chris Walsh. I want to bring out his expertise. I want to bring out his personality. I asked advertisers at a sales meeting, I said, what are the 3 things you hear from new customers the most? You just hear all the time, and it's just a question you just hit out of the park, right? And, in this case, Chris Walsh, when's the right time to buy a house? How can I get the most when I do sell the house? What should I look for if I want to get into investment properties? These are 3 things he hears the most, and those become the things. And I have to thank Matt Cohen from Second Street and St. Louis Magazine for turning me on to this. He had me read a book called They Ask, You Answer. And that's where I kind of got that strategy from. But I want to bring their expertise out in front of the community. And I want to facilitate the conversation and storytelling by everyone, right? So I want to make sure that, importantly, verified users, right? This is not a one-way street anymore. I want Red Bank citizens, the people like on my street, like in the downtown, in Red Bank. It's not that big of a community. It's like about 10,000 people. Verified users can text in micro posts. Daughter graduated from college, your son got Eagle Scout, whatever it is, that should be something that plays into Red Bank. It's not just the big stories, not just the fires, not just the accidents, like Bruce Springsteen showed up in town one day, right? I want verified users to be their own individual influencers and celebrities on Red Bank Green. There's a dedicated section on the website, show you in a bit, but all business updates, neighbor updates, all those top stories automatically go into a daily newsletter of 12,000. So this is one view of it. It's called the Register. It pays homage to the Red Bank Register, which is the old newspaper in town, which was in existence for about 120 years. But to summarize this, and we're still working on things. Oh, one other thing. You can notice this little clap icon on the bottom right, like on Medium. So we also allow the users to give feedback, not just click on ads. We want to get a cumulative amount of claps, right? So it's not just per message, it's like in total. And when you click on it, there's like a confetti blast, which is fun. So I want it to be fun too. But the summary here is that we're rethinking who we are, building the tech to facilitate it. A lot of that's going to reflect in Broad Street because we want to make that available to everyone, but breaking the rules and constantly pushing, refining, and polishing. You have to innovate. And I'm particularly inspired by, I think somebody we could really all associate with innovation. Last night, I happened to be in the Bay Area, so I had to go to Steve Jobs' house. This is the garage that Apple was founded in. And when Apple was founded, personal computers weren't a thing. No, IBM didn't think that personal computers were going to be a thing. We have to keep pushing. And that was actually a quote in his biography. You always have to keep pushing to innovate. And he went on to talk about his favorite artist, Bob Dylan. If you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. It sounds very serious. So on that note, I was playing a game with my son, Old Maid. It's kind of a rude name, but he was learning Old Maid. Very simple game. If you haven't played it, you both have a bunch of cards. You take turns picking cards from each other. One of you has the Old Maid. You don't want to get that card, right? So we were having a lot of fun playing it, but I realized, like, I was having fun. I looked in his eyes, like he wasn't having fun anymore. He was like anxious that he was going to pick the Old Maid. I was like, don't pick it. And he was getting very serious, And I realized that, like, sometimes you start something out to have fun, and then it becomes serious, and you forgot that you were trying to have fun in the first place. I think we've all experienced that. Sometimes we experience it with our businesses. We did this whole thing to have fun. But in terms of taking it seriously, consider who you are and your unique superpowers. I borrowed that from Johnny. It's a fantastic concept. If you don't know what they are, I bet you do. I bet they've always been there, and they are something that is going to emerge over time, especially as you express it through authentic partnership with your readers, your businesses, and your community. Without everyone else, without your community, there is no you, right? You need them, and they need you. So never ever forget, I'm going to end on this. I know it went a little over. Never ever forget to have fun. That's why we're doing it. So thank you so much. I hope that was something to think about, and it gave you some additional perspective. So pass it back to you, Johnny.
Kenny, that was amazing, bro. Thank you for sharing that. We've got a little bit of time for questions right now. I'm going to start with some of my own, actually, because I think that I want to, there's a couple areas you spoke on that I want to dig deeper into. So I think probably one of the big quotes I pulled out of the time was, and I think it's a controversial quote, and it's not our job to be the authority, right? Like, speaking with your publisher hat on, it's not our job to be the authority. It's our job to facilitate the connections and the conversations you said connections or conversations. Make sure I'm saying it right. Connections, conversations in the community. Yes.
Yeah. For us, that's who we are.
Yeah.
I don't think it applies to everyone, but I realized that from the very beginning, John Ward described Red Bank Green as a town square. That's why it's called Red Bank Green, like the green, like the village green that we all meet on. So that's a perfect example of when we were trying to figure out, like, what do we do? And it was always there. Yeah. Like that's a perfect example of something that was right under your nose, and you had a tough time thinking about it, right? So that's who we are. We bring the community together. Other publishers, they might be the authority, and that's totally fine. But it's individual.
Yeah, and I think, and I would say, I think there is an application of that principle to everyone, right? So when I call it controversial, I'm really just saying that I think that's a duality that people need to be wrestling with.
And I don't think anything is objectively true. I think that has been the accepted truth in publishing for however many years, that we are the authority, we're the one, and you can say that, but it's not necessarily true. That might not be your job. Yeah. You might that up. Somebody made that up at some point, and then everyone hobbled on. It's not objectively true. So I think a truth for us is that we're the connectors.
Yeah,
Someone else can be the authority. We're the connectors. That's what we're good at.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I certainly do think that that has application to other people. It makes me think that part of, tell me what you think about this. I'm going to go off just with a crazy thought.
Mhm.
But it seems that the asset, and I said this in the beginning, the asset that you have at your disposal as a publisher is trust within a community,
Mhm.
which isn't, trust does have a connotation of authority with
Yeah.
it, right? But that trust is the asset. And so then we need to think about what are the ways to leverage the asset of trust, right? What are the best ways to leverage trust to both stay profitable and increase profitability, and also bring the maximum benefit to the community that I'm serving.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's the right question?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of done that. Well, I tried to do that in Red Bank Green because we do have a lot of trust. But I think the way to leverage that, to use a word, because leverage sounds like you're using it for,
Yeah.
but like I I'm radically transparent about, like, when I talk to an advertiser, like, I tell them what I'm trying to do with Red Bank Green. I tell them like where we are in terms of revenue. I tell them where I'm trying to get to. Right. I'm building that partnership. It's not one way. Like, I can help them, they can help me. I know
Yep.
that sounds crazy and not everyone can do that.
Yep.
But I think if you want to use the trust, then be transparent about who you are and where you're going. Because, like, you can be the taxi driver and just be like, hey bub, hop in, and I'm going to take you where you want to go. But, like, it's a much more special relationship when he says like, this is where I'm trying to get to one day. You
Yeah.
know? So, and I think that's where the human connection comes in. You understand who each other is.
That's a much better way to put it, right? You're saying, because it is true. If you're a relational organization versus a transactional organization, then the currency of relationship is authenticity and vulnerability, right? You're not going to get vulnerability and authenticity from other people unless you're willing to give it, right?
Yeah.
And so you're talking about even in the sales room, right? In the place where sales happen.
Right. Well, you know what the thing is? Sometimes we have this embedded perspective, this way of looking at things. And one of those things, like, for a lot of people, sales is transactional. It's like, hey, get them, like, here's the pitch. Like, this is how you overcome objections. This is how you treat them like they're this, like, little mouse in a maze. Right.
Yeah.
And some people, that is what sales is, especially people who aren't in sales.
Yeah.
Most of the people who aren't in sales think of sales that way. But if you can shift your thinking to a point where, like, I need to help this person get to where they want to go, you have the same exact objective, but it's a difference in the way you looked at stuff.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. That's why I think perspective is so powerful.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I know Amy Scott, who's going to be presenting later, is going to actually, I think, resonate a lot with that strategy.
Yeah. I've sat in on Amy's sessions before, and it's the exact same thing. Always thinking on behalf of the client, even when the client wants to do something that, like, you wouldn't agree with, like, finding a way to position it where it's good for them. There's always that, like, I'm helping them. And if you maintain that perspective, like, amazing. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right. So I'm going to ask a harder question. So I think a lot of times on webinars, I've seen this happen before. Somebody comes up and brings something amazing. They bring the fire, which, Kenny, you brought the fire today, I think. They bring the fire and they say, okay, here's a future. Here's a potential future that inspires, right? And then I'm asking, I mean, if it's a conference that's for someone like me, I'm asking, okay, how? How do I get there? Like, I get how you get there, Kenny, because you're a dreamer, you're a visionary, you've got an incredible vision, and you also have these technological chops at your disposal to get you there. So what would you say, how would you distill that inspiring vision down to one or a few steps for your fellow publishers in terms of how to begin creating a brand that yes, that maybe still has the emphasis on authority, but then has a growing emphasis on facilitating the conversation, connecting within the community?
I think it comes down to that vibe model. having the vision and sharing it with everyone. Because the thing is, like, I'm building this kind of a community advisory board at Red Bank Green. I'm calling it Guardians of the Green. I'm
Yeah.
getting like 12 people who, to use a phrase, give a shit about Red Bank.
Yeah.
And they give a shit about Red Bank Green. They give a shit about us. Like, it's not everybody. Some people hate us and they think we're the evil mass media. Like,
Yeah.
we're all lumped in with them. But like, I'm building a community, right? I'm sharing that vision. I'm spreading that, bringing the businesses in, and making sure everyone's a part of it. And it's all about that human connection. It's hard to do it at scale and be transactional. There have been a lot of in-person conversations I've had.
Yeah.
And you need FaceTime with people in the community who care. And that's where, it all comes together.
Yeah. No, that's good. So that's the V and Vibe. That's so funny because part of what I'm presenting on later is kind of how I watch Logan Aguirre over at 417 do that exact thing that you're describing. Like getting in tight and asking the hard questions to close members of the community, and then getting a deeper understanding of the value of her brand through those interactions that she was having with individuals. So
Right.
I'll hit that later.
Logan had a great, not to interrupt, but Logan had a great presentation at CRMA where I think she literally asked like advertisers why they advertised with her. Like, were they going to renew? Like, and like, oh man, like, but that's what you need to do. You need to get in there because that's someone who cares right there.
Practical nugget, right? So then basically, yeah, if you want to get relational, then step one is go get relational, right? Step one is you got to go eye to eye with individuals, man. Don't be, there's Amy, come on, bring in the truth. Or Amy, don't be afraid to hear the truth. Come on, man, because you don't ask. I don't want to steal your thunder, Amy, because you're probably going to get into this later. But yeah, the reason you don't ask is because you're afraid to hear the answer. But if you don't, I'm going to take it right back to me when I'm in this team session with my team. And, I don't want to hear, hey, dude, Johnny, you're the problem. I don't want to hear that. But because I heard it, I could do something about it. Go ahead.
Just building, because we do this all the time on a call where like one person starts another thought process. But if you don't want to hear the answer, right, it means you're probably in that mindset of like kind of like scarcity. You're afraid that if you hear the answer, it's going to suggest a future where like there's not going to be enough for you, right?
Yes.
Just go in thinking like, well, if the answer isn't good, then I'm going to fix that. That's it. It's always about them.
Yes.
It's about giving, which you sent me that book.
Go Giver. Bob Berg, John David Mann, the Go Giver. If you haven't gotten it, if you're on this webinar and you shoot me a message and you say, Johnny, I want that book, I will send you the book. You'll have it within 3 days. So I am rabid and frothing at the mouth about having people read that book. And so I'm glad you liked it, Kenny.